get straight into it then. So I went Australian then. I said straight with like an Australian accent. All right, mate. So do you just want to introduce yourself and tell the people listening or watching sort of your background and what you're doing day to day now?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. My name's Duran Krummeck. I've born in South Africa, now living in Ireland. Yeah, my journey started from a toddler when I was a kid. Rugby ball never left my hands, and yeah, I grew up in a rugby nation, South Africa. So rugby was a big deal, and my school career, I was playing. I was always one of the top kids in the school, but I never really made it into like the provincial setups during school, which is quite big in South Africa. So if you want to make it in rugby, you make it into your provinces and then you make it into your school national team, which never really happened for me until I got out of school, where I got a scholarship to Varsity College, which is a college in South Africa, a good rugby college, and played under 20 years there, and I got Player of the Year and made it to the Sharks under 19 setup. Taking it from there, that same season, I made the first team for Varsity College in my under 20 year, and then as it went through, nothing was really happening. It was just basically day to day. I wanted to become a fully professional rugby player, but it was just seeming to be in that semi-professional zone. Until I think the key is the way I was brought up by my family and by everything. We have Jesus in the center, and just never giving up. So that's what helped me to get to where I am today. Just as much as you want to knock me down, I'm not going to stay on that ground. So it's me versus me, and I strive to beat myself every day. Where it's taken me to Ireland, where I live now, playing for the Irish men's seven side in the Seven Series.
Cool. So I mean, for me, there it sounds like for you that to get to where you are now, it's been nothing short of just basically gritting your teeth and hard work, would you say?
That's it. Just never giving up, persistence. Yeah.
So with the setbacks you had, so let's say, going back to when you was a lot younger and, like you said there, if you want to make it in terms of South African rugby at that schoolboy age, you've got to get into your provinces. So for you at that age, how did you take that setback?
Yeah, it was at that age. It's hard to take criticism or to take setbacks in a way, but without the support of my family and as I said, we have it's different for everyone, but for us, we have Jesus in the center of our family, and with that foundation, nothing, honestly, thinking back, nothing could really bring me down, because I saw every failure as a stepping stone to just achieving better next time. So. Failure wasn't the be all and end all. I used it as a stepping stone. So that's my outlook.
I think that's good to hear, because I think that nowadays, all you really see is success because of just the way that social media is. You look at somebody and you think, all right, they've just had a bit of a clean, easy ride. Whereas, talking to you already, you can see that actually, it's not just been this linear path to the Island Sevens training setup. You've had to, go through a few bends and curves and a few spanner in the woodwork. So I think it's going to be good for a lot of people to hear. Definitely.
There's always a bigger mountain underneath the surface than when you see the mountain on top.
Yeah, people don't realise. I mean, flick it to like a business point of view. People probably look at the business that we're running now in terms of performing, but that's been 4 years probably in the making to even get any like the tiniest bit of success in terms of like where I want to go. And it's the same for everything. So anyone that's listening, it's not this linear path to success. Like I say, there is a mountain underneath it. So I guess that brings us nicely to kind of like where you're at now. So like you said there, you're with that Island 7 setup. How does that come about then? Is that parents or grandparents that makes you eligible for Ireland?
Yeah, so my gran was born in Ireland. She was born here, and my dad jumped on the bandwagon quickly. So before the rules changed, he managed to get me a citizenship, a passport for Ireland. So I'm one of the lucky ones to be able to have dual citizenship.
Yeah. And how did that come about then in terms of you getting in that setup? How was you spotted, or how did you get your foot in the door?
So it was through persistence, I'd say. So I was training with the Sharks, and then I came over tried out with Ulster up in the north of Ireland there, and played when I was 20 years old. I came over for an experience, and I got in touch with the sevens bassist back then. And then going back after trying South Africa, I thought nothing better than to go for a country that our family's behind Ireland every single weekend. So
Yeah.
it is a big dream of mine to play for Ireland. So I got in touch with the coaches, and I came over for a trial period here, and I've never looked back.
Smashing. So you're beyond that trial period, so now it's just kind of into full training. Is that right?
That's it. Full training. We're actually training for the Olympics next year now.
Yeah.
So we've got a qualification next year to get into. There's one more spot available for the sevens in the Olympics, so we've got that milestone ahead.
So with that sort of like end goal potentially in mind, obviously COVID depending, what does your, let's say, day-to-day training look like?
Yeah, so a day in the life of a sevens player would be we enter in the morning, we do our checks, we have our mobility checks and strapping in the morning. So we go through certain criteria that we had previously been tested on, so to just test our mobility and all of that, get strapped, get mentally prepared, do our own preparation, and we head off to the field. We have about a 90-minute field session. After that, we head back into the hydration room. We get into ice bath and heat on and off for about 20 minutes. We get a lunch break where we got a chef that cooks us great meals. After that, we go straight into the gym, do a bit of strength training, whatever the deal is for the day, and end it off with that. So it's a pretty full day of training, mixed up depending on where we are in season, whether it's pre-season or during season, what differs in our strength training, but it's a great day nonetheless. So
with such like a hectic schedule, is there anything that you do away from that training ground to make sure that you're physically in the best place possible, but then I guess also mentally prepared? I mean, because that's, a full day of training, there's a lot going on. I think people sometimes think that, within these professional rugby setups, you turn up, you train, and then you leave, and then it's as simple as that, but it's not. So we'll touch on that mental side then. So is there anything that you do away from the training ground that keeps you in the best mental state possible to perform?
I'm glad you brought that up, because everyone sees and everyone focuses on diet and training, but for me, I don't see anything more important than your mind. To become that premium athlete, if you watch the best in the world, Michael Jordan, the Tiger Woods, they've all got that mental attitude where no one will top them, and that for me is the key. And I've only recently found that in the past year that the meditation and being in your own space is vitally important, more important, I would say, than getting into the gym and getting onto that field, getting your mind prepared for all sorts of things. So I do meditate quite a lot, and find that dharma, if you may, my purpose through meditation.
It's interesting to hear you say that. It's something that I've tried to do recently, just in terms of my own health, physical performance, business performance, in terms of routine. So I think COVID's probably thrown a lot of people off in terms of routine, and it has done me especially. So, but since I've started getting a bit of routine back in there, I've just felt performance across every single aspect of my life go straight up. So is there any sort of any specific routines that you have then? So obviously there's the meditation. Is that every single day?
Yes, it's I won't look at my phone. I won't get out of bed until I've woken up and had my deep breaths and calm state of mind. Once I'm in that state, as you wake up, your brain's in the most informative state it can be in. So whatever you put into your brain in that morning is the most vital part on playing out the course of your day. So I wake up, I close my eyes, I lie on my back, and I think of my day ahead, and I only think of positive vibes. So that's my morning routine every single morning. And before I go to bed, I've recently started the Wim Hof breathing exercises, which is actually pretty good. I'm really enjoying that challenge.
Yeah, I've implemented that into a bit of a morning routine. I used to do it a long time ago with cold showers, so contrast showers.
Yes.
So using the breathing technique. So for anyone that doesn't know, it's basically Wim Hof's this guy who they call him the Iceman. He's basically just the king of the cold, I guess you could say. He's got records in terms of, I think he's climbed above the Everest death zone without a t-shirt on like 3 times. Is what's across Antarctica, but he's got these breathing techniques. So the one that I do is 30 to 50 breaths deep, hold to the point where you get a bit of a tingle in my head. My head goes a bit tingly. Hold my breath and then submerge myself under cold water. And for me in the morning, it's a way of delaying that instant, I need some caffeine or I need some sugar. It's a way of being like, right, I'm awake, let's get at it. Is that something similar to in terms of the breathing you've done, or?
That's exactly it. It's giving you new ways than the habitual feed yourself with medication or to get yourself up there. If it all starts in the mind, it's just it's the way forward. The mind is the most important part of the body.
I think it's these habits that go under the radar completely. I mean, even I guess I'm a bit naive in terms of sharing this type of content. I just never really have, and it's something that I should probably do because it's an holistic approach to performance. So it's great to hear you talk about it. So I guess just touching on habits then a little bit more, just because I think it's something where I really want to take this further. So you've obviously got the meditation, and that's worked well for you. Is there any other kind of habits that you, maybe even you don't know you're doing it every single day, but you just do it anyway, that you think make you a better rugby player?
I would say just not only thinking about one thing. I don't only focus on rugby. Life's more than just your work or your goals. It's focusing on compassion, which helps me a lot. I take my days out and wanting to do things for others and wanting to just be grateful for why I'm on earth. And I think if everyone can just take a deep breath and realize why we're actually on earth, it's to give to others, because that's what gives us the greatest feedback. So other than just my daily routines and focusing on myself, I love that part of giving back, mixing my sports up as well. I love doing a bit of boxing and MMA, jiu-jitsu, rolling. That's another big aspect of my life that I just mix up my daily routines. It's not focused on one specific aspect.
Yeah. Do you think in rugby in particular, just because of the nature of the sport and the mentality behind it at times, that compassion maybe isn't as prevalent as it would be in other sports?
That it could be perceived that way. However, I do think rugby's the biggest gentleman's game on this planet. Yeah. If you look at the way the ref is treated compared to a game of football, or the way these big, huge men go and drill each other on the field, and they absolutely smash each other, but afterwards they're hugging and they just got such respect for each other. So I would say that rugby's a great gentleman's sport. If you take away what happens in those 4 lines outside of the game, there's so much it has to offer.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I turned on Premier League over the weekend, and I don't know how players can get away with it. But then seeing kids playing on a weekend, it filters down in terms of if you go watch a schoolboy rugby match, the ref is treated with respect, and compared to a football under 15s match, it's a completely different world. Touching on that, so yeah, it's the old, it's the gentleman's game. Do you think that in terms of these things of meditation, and I guess meditation being the big one, because I guess meditation can be perceived in a certain way in terms of, I know a lot of people who've been like, I'm not doing that, and just being like a complete blanket over it, because of whatever reasons. Do you think that's the case in rugby, that maybe players aren't as willing to buy into things like this?
Well, I was one of them. So I always used to just think of meditation as this, maybe, to put it, lack of a better word, weak term. It's for someone who wants to just be quiet in themselves. But that's why, to this day, I'm still looking for a better term to describe what I do, because meditation has that almost a negative context in terms of it's been taken a bit far in some aspects. So for me, it's definitely a case of just broadening our knowledge on what meditation really is and what it really does. And it's not actually just thinking about aligning your chakras and the other religious aspects around it. It's more about yourself and your own goals and your own. It allows you to reach a space where you can actually clearly focus on your own goals and reach greater heights in life.
Just before I move on then, just because you said something about goals there, but before we move on to goals, how did you get into it then?
So I was just at a space where I'm training as hard as I can. I'm doing everything I can to get to where was I going? What was I doing all of this for? So I did a lot of research into that, into finding my purpose, and then it changed into finding it's a word called Dharma that is a popular word. It's almost like eternal purpose. To find that, after a lot of research being done, it's the best way to find that, as I said earlier, is that finding that calm mental space where you're able to think clearly and focus on things like gratitude, and being humble and focusing on your goals in the future.
Smashing. So then, bringing us to your goals then. So for you, is goal setting something that you do regularly?
Yes, it's a big part of my life.
So is that so how does that look then for you? Is that long term, short term, medium term, or is it certain specific milestones you want to hit? What does that look like for you?
So my goal setting would I refer to the SMART way of doing it. So
yeah.
Specific, measurable, all of those attainable. So I'll sit down at the beginning of each month and I'll set out small targets. So everyone, not everyone, that's a bad thing to say, but majority of people often see things as, I want to be the best rugby player in the world, or I want to be the best soccer player in the world, whatever it is. They see these huge goals, but there's no actual real steps in making it to them. So I sit down and they forget the small things. They forget the doing the day-to-day procedures, like waking up, being in your own mind, waking up, eating the right things. They're very quick to talk, but the actions aren't there. So with me writing them down on a piece of paper every month, it actually makes me get to doing the actions. My action started by putting that pen on paper. So it gets you doing the actions, and with those actions come results.
So like I say, you do write them down. Is that something that you reflect on each month, just to kind of keep you on that right path?
It is. It's a great feeling just to stick a tick next to that the written goals. So that's a big part of my life, is writing those goals down at the beginning of the month, and at the end of the month seeing they're not often all reached, but the ones that are, it's a great feeling. It's almost a feeling of accomplishment. It's just and that tick feels like the best tick you'll ever write in your life.
Do you think that writing them down is a lot different to just keeping them in your head for you personally?
100%.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it's something that I personally probably need to explore a bit better, because I always feel I have these, and it's something that I have done in the past, and it's funny because when I have wrote things down specifically in the past, it's made everything filled with a lot more clarity. Whereas at times, especially now, I have these massive ideas in my head, and my head's just in 12 different places at the wrong times. So yeah, writing them down is something that I need to do, and I know that a lot of other people need to do as well. So is there any specific goals that you wouldn't mind sharing now in terms of where you would like to go, whether it's short or long term?
Yeah. So for the next 3 months, in the rugby side of things, there's not much to be focused on. We don't have many tournaments coming up. We don't have much issues. But for a big long-term goal, which is between 0 to 6 months, I've got the goal of getting into the Olympic team, making that team, and going to the Olympics, which is a huge dream of mine. A short-term goal is a goal just to strive to increase my meditation minutes. So I do 20 minutes every day, but this month, for example, I sat down and I wrote, I want to get to doing 35 minutes of meditation every day, and then including an hour's meditation on a Sunday. So that's a short-term goal that I've set for this month, and that's what I'm going to be reaching. So I've been doing that pretty consistently now. But so my goals range from what some might say is small, like a goal to increase 15 minutes of meditation a day, to a goal which is a long-term goal of mine to get to the Olympics and make that team and represent Ireland in the Olympics.
Is that 15 minutes extra meditation then, does that have a specific purpose in terms of what you might get out of it?
Yes, it's just the longer my brain can stay in that in a state of absorbing information, the longer I can sit in that state of gratitude. And that state of gratitude, forgiveness, compassion that I strive to get into in the morning, is the longer I can be in that state, the better my day. And I've really noticed that in my experience with meditation in the morning. So that's my goal. The longer I can stay in that state, I don't want to have to be thinking about that morning coffee or be thinking about getting up to go onto Instagram, social media. I'd like to just be focused on that 35 minutes. As long as it can be in that morning, I want to get that time and make it a time consistently.
There was two words I picked up on then, and it was absorbing information. Sorry. So for you seem like a very switched on individual in terms of your development as a player, from not just your rugby but that holistic approach. And thinking about that, absorbing information a second, is there any additional kind of learning that you do away from rugby that you think contribute to making you a better player?
Yes, learning, for me, it comes down to learning the stories of Jesus. It really brings me as a person closer to what we really here on this earth for. So I read the Bible as often as I can, getting those stories in and learning from who I call the greatest person on the planet. And as well as I listen to Mind Valley podcast quite a lot. So it's a podcast called Mind Valley. He's a great holistic person, just focusing on things that I've been talking about today. So that's a big draw card for me, is that those podcasts are on my way to training, on my way back. I'm not listening to music in the car. I'm listening to podcasts, trying to just greaten my knowledge in mental health. Sports psychology is a big interest of mine. So it all starts with the mind for me.
Is there any athlete in particular you look up to in terms of the mental side of it, the mental game, who you look up to and think, right, that's who I want to match in terms of the way I match my mental performance?
Yes, there's you can a whole bunch of athletes come to mind, but that The Last Dance that I watched was unbelievable, and that the mentality of a man like Michael Jordan, just to get to where he was, and probably the greatest athlete of all time. I would look up to that mentality. However, there are obviously, as with everyone, there's downsides to that mentality as well. I would be a bit more humble in my approach, but my ideal sportsman to look up to would be that kind of mindset where no one's going to beat me. It's a mindset of almost like a Mike Tyson and Michael Jordan kind of mindset.
I think with these people is that people forget is, using Michael Jordan for a second, the greatest basketballer. Well, people can argue about it, whatever. So we'll say for the purpose of this podcast, the greatest basketballer that's ever lived. And when you watch The Last Dance, he is absolutely relentless in terms of his performances, like you say. And he's like, I'm not having that. Anybody else beat me, I am the man type thing. But also, he is so persistent in a pursuit of excellence within himself. And again, it's another thing that people don't see behind the closed doors of the training and everything that goes into it. For example, have you seen the Tiger Woods documentary on Sky?
I haven't.
So basically, the Tiger Woods documentary, very similar to what you get from Michael Jordan, is that Tiger Woods would play around, and for anybody else, it would be a very good round of golf. But for him, he would then punish himself to the point he would take himself on the driving range and he'd be hitting balls until it was dark. And it's this kind of mentality that people don't see. So yeah, it's great to It's great to hear you say that. So, I mean, I guess kind of like wrapping it up. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've ever wrote so many things down on a piece of paper in 30 minutes. But obviously, that Ireland goal, the Olympics is the big goal. Is there anything beyond that you want to achieve?
Beyond the Olympics, it's hard to see beyond the Olympics right now with everything that's going on. To set long-term goals is actually quite difficult. But for me, it would be to carry on in my rugby career. It's what I love doing. I love being on the field, but also just to help others. I want to get out there and in some way, I haven't discovered it yet, but in some way add value to people's lives through my experiences, through my knowledge of psychology and all of that. I'd love to add value. So that is a big long-term goal of mine outside of the rugby field.
I think then what would be a good point to go into now then is like I say that you want to bring value to other people, and I think a lot of things you've said so far on this podcast is people are going to implement things into their life straight away. So let's say to the 18-year-old rugby player who's about to embark on either an academy contract or university rugby or anything along those lines, what would you say to them? What would be that kind of one piece of advice that you would give them?
I would definitely tell them to never ever give up, embrace those battles, and don't live in a perception of others. So I did it for years, and if I could turn back time, I would definitely not try to be someone who I'm not, and I wouldn't form myself on the perception others form of me. So there's a famous quote by Thomas Cooley. It says, "I am not who you think I am. I am not who I think I am. I am who I think I am. I am who you think I am." So it's a very, very wise words from Thomas Cooley. Just thinking about when you're young, if I could turn back time, when I'm thinking of what others perceive me to be, often I'm very wrong. Focus on yourself, focus on the goals, and never ever ever give up. Find your purpose and follow that purpose. And a purpose doesn't have to be what you an expert in, because you can become an expert in what you're interested in. So whatever you find your interests, become an expert in your interests, and that is your purpose. Follow that purpose.
I think that's the mic drop moment. I think that is definitely the mic drop moment, mate. That was 30 minutes of absolute gold. I think a lot of players are going to get a lot from that. So I can't thank you enough for the content you've just provided for not just me. I've learned a lot in that 30 minutes, but a lot of other people, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dan, and I also appreciate what you do with Parfonen, and it's really a great academy. So for anyone who's not signed up with that, I definitely would sign up. I use their program whenever my off days come about, and it's really, the knowledge in it is greater than any.
Legend.
Seriously, keep it up. Thank you.
Absolute legend. Thank you very much, bud.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers, man.